This is all about election interference. This is all Biden-run things, meaning Biden and his thugs. They can't win an election because of the borders, because of energy prices, because of inflation, because of Afghanistan, the worst and most embarrassing day in the history of our country.
Ah, yes, President Trump yesterday, where he got some good news at long last out of a court slashing the phony bond that he was supposed to have to post from $464 million to a mere $175 million. How thoughtful and generous of them. Asked how he was going to post that, he said, cash, that's how, cash. By the way, out of the United Kingdom, where Englishmen have, been struggling with gender dysphoria for many centuries now, especially in the British Navy, if you know what I mean. Buggery. But the Telegraph out of the United Kingdom with the headline, Pheasants are queer. The pheasants are queer. Museum tells visitors in LGBT exhibition. The guide for the Hastings Museum and Art Gallery makes the claim despite it having no scientific basis whatsoever, the Telegraph reports. And it's a fairly humorous story, I've got to say. The whole thing is they say that these pheasants, when they stop laying eggs, the color of their feathers change. Therefore, they become transgender. And the Media Research Center, the wonderful and great Media Research Center, has a take on this, and their headline is Transaurus Rex Museum Goes Fact-Free and LGBT. Pretty amazing stuff. They give you a pamphlet at the British Museum there. The museum in Britain. It's not technically the British Museum, it's the Hastings Museum Queer History Trail Map. With queerness visible in the natural world, they say, the argument that it is somehow unnatural begins to unravel. See, then they make a fake argument. Pretty crazy stuff. Media Research Center, mrctv.org, with their story. They have a pamphlet that claims that, all kinds of crazy fake science to unravel actual science to make some claim stick that they made up. But, it's agenda before facts, as always with the left. And the pamphlet they hand out, despite queer behavior in the animal kingdom being observed as far back as the 18th century, well, all the way back there, huh? It is often ignored or hidden from the public, they write. One example is of female pheasants changing their sex when they stop laying eggs and turn their brown feathers into the brightly colored feathers typical of males. Yeah, so that's transgenderism? No, that's the feathers changing color. But, they were laying eggs a minute ago. The left is very easily confused, particularly on matters of gender. Pheasants feature in some of the earliest European studies of queer behavior in animals. In 1780, naturalist John Hunter, who they like to note lived from 1728 to 1793, shared his observations of, quote, sex-changing pheasants, end quote. He was being satirical. Turns out he was a precursor to Monty Python and not today's Democrat Party. Just amazing stuff. With queerness visible in the natural world, they say, the argument that it is somehow, quote, unnatural, end quote, begins to unravel. Well, because of the fiction that you're weaving here, but never mind that. Never mind that. I think I know what Muriel Bowser would say to that. You know what she'd say? Uh-oh, she'd say. All right, let's go to our audio because we have President Trump from yesterday. And, he had his Democrat Party witch hunt fine of the bail of $454 million or $464 million, depending on which publication you're reading. And she's adding the crazy left-wing radical attorney general in New York, adding interest rate. And apparently she's tweeting out. She's been tweeting out every day, oh, here's today's interest. It's $100,000, because she's so excited to publicly abuse her power for political reasons, just like a banana republic clown, because that's what she is, of course, a banana republic clown. A clown, like I make you laugh. So here's Morning Joke yesterday. They're just political hacks and nothing else. Mika and Joe.
Donald Trump could be forced to declare bankruptcy if he's unable to post his more than $450 million bond.
Very exciting. He could be forced to declare bankruptcy, which is, one of the political goals of the Democrat Party, that and to steal power. This is an insurrection by other means, is what it is. It is a revolt, a rebellion against an established power. The former president of the United States, the presumptive Republican nominee for the presidency, and the presumptive next president of the United States. And this insurrection is an uprising against an established authority, which is what an insurrection is. But, they might just change the definition of the word, which they've done before. In fact, Google, they just changed. What did they change, Michael? Over the weekend, they just changed bloodbath, and they eliminated the definition of bloodbath that was used by President Trump because they're Orwellian, totalitarian nightmares, and they call themselves liberals. So here's the definition of insurrection. Now, they've changed this. They actually have changed this. A violent uprising against an authority or government. Sure, but that's not the only definition. They just change the definition from time to time because it serves the interests of the party. An act or instance of revolting against civil authority or an established government. That's insurrection according to Merriam-Webster. Now, the acts by these prosecuting attorneys and the Attorney General of the state of New York and Judge Engoron and the lynch mobs, plural, out for President Trump. Are these not insurrections? Are they not acts or instances of revolting against a civil authority in the form of President Trump and the Republican Party, or an established government? Or doesn't have to also be an established government. So are these acts and instances of revolting against civil authority, the Republican Party and Donald Trump? Of course they are. These are insurrections that we're watching all over the place. But when you're a Democrat, that's okay. So Morning Joke and Mika, they were hoping he would have to file for bankruptcy, which is, of course, what these crooks abusing their power, going after Trump, are all about. Bankrupt him, punish him. And they learned that he had about $500 million in his fund for possible use in his reelection bid. And if they took that away, it would, as President Trump described it yesterday, that would be election interference. And it was their goal. And they used some obscure legal method to find out how much money he had in cash. And then they came in with a bond that was just below that amount of money, figuring they could take away his fund for his presidential campaign. And that is election interference. And that is an insurrection, an act or instance of revolting. You're telling me. That's, like, Your Majesty, the people are revolting. You're telling me they stink on ice. That's the Democrat. Or is it the peasants are revolting? The people are revolting, or the peasants?
I've come on the most urgent of business. It is said that the people are revolting.
You said it. They stink on ice.
You said it. They stink on ice. And that's the Democrat Party's view of the world. And everybody's a Nazi while they're marching against Israel and calling for Israel to be wiped out from the river to the sea. Right? Sure. And Dr. Jill talking about the LGBTQ fun in Berlin in the 1930s. Well, who do you think became the Nazis? The Socialist Workers' Party of Germany. All right, President Trump yesterday responding to, he was in and out of a couple of different courts because of the ongoing insurrection by the Democrats. President Trump yesterday, after learning that he was going to get an extra 10 days. Oh, thank you for your generosity, dear court, beloved court. And that the fine, the bond, the dollar figure would be reduced from $454 million to $175 million. President Trump.
It's a sad day in our country in many respects, but the good day is that the appellate division was fair. It's a lot of money still, but the judge is corrupt, in my opinion. Greatly respect the decision of the appellate division, and we will abide by that. We'll put up cash or bond very quickly.
We'll put up the cash or bond very quickly. Now it's a mere $175 million, which I think most of us have in our checking account. I moved mine into an interest earning account, my $175 million. Let's go to the reporters were clamoring because the way they never do with Biden or any Democrat anywhere ever, because they're fluffers performing acts of journalistic gratification upon the Democrat Party each and every day. President Trump yesterday not having such acts performed upon him.
I have a lot of cash. You know I do because you looked at my statements. But I would also like to be able to use some of my cash to get elected. They don't want me to use my cash to get elected. They don't want that. They don't want me taking cash out to use it for the campaign.
Are you going to start putting money into your campaign? You haven't done that since 2016.
Well, first of all, it's none of your business, frankly. But I might do that. I have the option.
I have the option because I got a whole lot of money. And the media, they're very upset about this. Very upset. He owns, and that Democrat from the Democrat administrations, very upset. Trump's got a plane and he's got a country club, and he resents them very deeply because they're bitter, small-minded people, and that's why they want to steal everybody's stuff, as commies have wanted for more than a century now. President Trump pointing out some facts, which then the news media lies about and says, oh, he's just making things up there. Joe Biden's behind it. Now, keeping in mind that Fani Willis's boyfriend had hours and hours of meetings at the White House, at the Joe Biden White House. And Jack Smith, special counsel, prosecutor, his team had meetings at the Biden White House. And then they're loosed on Donald Trump. Just don't suggest that there is any connective tissue there. President Trump yesterday.
This is a Biden trial. These are all Biden trials because Colangelo worked for Biden. Can you imagine they take a guy out of DOJ and they put him into the Attorney General's office and then into the Manhattan DA's office to go after Trump? These are all Biden trials.
These are all Biden trials. Well, Fannie's boyfriend, Jack Smith's boys at the White House having meetings for hours on end. The White House logs demonstrate that these meetings took place. And if we had a news media, they might report it, but unfortunately we don't. Reporter yells at him, where are you going to get the money to pay the $175 million?
What's your collateral for the bond?
Cash. That's where. I'm going to write a check. That's what I'm going to do. Now, the news media, an awful and corrupt institution, just extraordinarily corrupt. I tell you what, I want to share what the news media did in response to this. CNN dumped out of Trump right in the middle of Trump making statements. And coincidentally, MSDNC dumped out of Trump in the middle of Trump making statements about this. They were excited because they thought, great damage would be done to him. Fascists that they are. And wait till you hear the news media. In fact, CNN liked dumping out of Trump so much, you'll never guess what they did. And then they had these Democrats, these dim-witted Democrats on to talk about angry, bitter, resentful Democrats. A man, believe it or not, named Tristan Snell. Tristan Snell, which is like a cartoon character name. Have those coming right up for you. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Got an update for you I want to share on Republican Congressman Mike Gallagher, who's doing his country wrong. I want to share that with you coming up. But right now, let's get to the creepy news media. MSDNC, a front group for the Democrat Party, was carrying President Trump briefly, and then they were bristling with rage, and they had to dump out of President Trump's remarks.
Respect the appellate division for substantially reducing that ridiculous amount of money that was put on by a corrupt judge named Engoron. He ought to be looked at.
And so we'll continue to listen to Donald Trump, but as he continues to make what are provably wrong statements.
Provably wrong statement. They wouldn't actually look to verify one way or the other because they're lying sacks of Jewia, as everybody knows. On CNN, Boris Sanchez got a Soviet first name and Latin American last name. And they, too, could not stand to listen to Trump any longer.
And this guy's just letting them come in by the millions. I think we have 15 million people already.
We are going to continue monitoring the remarks from former President Donald Trump just moments after leaving court, a judge deciding to move forward with his hush money criminal case, 1 month delayed. It was supposed to start today. Now it is set to start on April 15th. Trump there laying out a plethora of falsehoods, perhaps the most blatant one, that all of these criminal cases were orchestrated by President Biden. There is no evidence to support that.
There's no evidence to support that except the White House logs showing Fani Willis's boyfriend visiting the White House for extended meetings with the White House counsel's office before he jumped into the prosecution of President Trump in Atlanta. And then, of course, the Jack Smith special counsel lawyers meeting at the White House with White House officials and then assailing Trump. But other than that, Boris Sanchez doesn't follow the news here. He only follows the news in Russia, I think. And then CNN actually went back to Trump because he continued, and then they became offended again and had to dump out of him for a second time.
Today he went right up front because they figure he buffaloed the whole public and the writers, including you people.
So as the president is answering questions from reporters,
we're dumping out
more
again.
Falsehoods from former President Donald Trump, again repeating this false claim that President Joe Biden is behind the slew of legal issues that he's facing, not only criminal but also civil as well.
You might want to, have the anchor say, well, there were meetings between Fani Willis's paramour, her boyfriend, who she overpaid with taxpayer dollars and then went on vacation with him repeatedly with the money that she was funneling to him in excess of what the other lawyers and prosecutors were making. And then the Jack Smith team visits to the White House, and the White House logs show that there was coordination, or what certainly appears to be coordination. Why would Fani Willis's boyfriend be taking meetings at the White House? What kind of explanation do they have for that? And Jack Smith's team meeting at the White House. You might, if you're a journalist instead of a propagandist, comrade worker, then maybe you'd want to inform your dwindling number of viewers. Now on MSDNC, which is a radical left-wing gang of extremists, they invited a former New York assistant attorney general who, do you think he worked for the psychopath that's there now, the commie political hack that's driving the state's legal system into the ground? A former assistant attorney general for New York, whose name is Tristan Snell, S-N-E-L-L, Tristan Snell, which is like a Monty Python name, I think. But, and he, unencumbered by traditional notions of masculinity, which he would doubtless consider to be toxic, he was on MSDNC, and he's a very angry, bitter man who is resentful of President Trump in myriad ways. And he was on MSDNC, which is a perfect fit for him because they're all very resentful of President Trump, including Boris the Bolshevik Sanchez, and probably a pal of Bernie the Bolshevik Sanders, because the Democrat Party, they're not on our side. They're not Americans like we traditionally think of Americans. But here is Tristan Snell on MSDNC, Democrat apparatchik.
Honestly, this is so infuriating, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know if I care what the process is that these judges are arriving at. Whatever it is, it's flawed. I can tell you that much. I mean, David put it well. This is a different process for this person.
Well, yeah, you're right. No one else has been held to this standard in the history of the United States. It's quite remarkable. Now, the news media jumped in today to try to help the radical left-wingers in the United States. ABC News, have you heard of them? They used to have a news organization, and now it's an amazing thing. They're posting, Alex Jones, InfoWars, he was ordered to pay $965 million to the Sandy Hook families, the school massacre at Sandy Hook, which he said was faked. And the families took him to court, and he was ordered by the court to pay $965 million, which he presumably did not have. But that, that was okay with him because, crazy stuff. Also, did you see this? This is, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, probably not. But HBO is excited to announce that they've got a new documentary film on Alex Jones, because it's an election year, and HBO is just another tool in the Democrat Party's shed, and they whip it out to do their propaganda for them. The propaganda apparatus of the Democrat Party is boundless. All these major corporations, media corporations, and so on. But I digress. Let's get back to Tristan Snell, who is, I guess, his real name. He's very bitter, and he's right. Yeah, I don't know what this process is. He's a lawyer, of course. He was assistant attorney general in New York, and he's very angry and a very political person, a very partisan person. He makes that clear with the expression of each word that runs out of his festering gob. And he yesterday demonstrated his bitterness about President Trump.
We have decided that he gets his own private court of justice. He has a private plane. He has private clubs that he lives in. Apparently, he basically fashioned himself his own private militia to try to take over the Capitol. Now he's getting his own private system of justice.
Right. Very bitter about the private airplane. It's a beautiful airplane. It's a Boeing 757. That's normally an airliner. That's his private airplane. Very resentful, very bitter is Tristan Snell on MSDNC, the former assistant attorney general of the state of New York. Wait, he lives in private clubs. Yeah, Mar-a-Lago, and he owns a golf club, Country Club, Westchester County outside of New York City, and he owns golf courses and mansions and clubs and oceanfront historic estates like Mar-a-Lago, and he goes from place to place in his private airliner, and that obviously really rankles Tristan Snell, who's never built a skyscraper in his life and never dealt with the unions in New York and the bureaucracy in New York. But, the mafia, organized crime, that's just the Democrats in the state. The organized crime part, private clubs, private plane, and his own private system of justice. Well, you're right in that no one else has ever been treated like this by our justice system. But you've got it completely backward, of course, because if you get your news on MSNBC, you know a lot of things, but they're all wrong. It's the old, it's not that Democrats don't know anything, it's just that so much of what they know is wrong because media, you choose your media carefully. Here, you find out what's really going on. There, you end up being terribly misinformed because Democrats. That's the thing. Man, oh, Manischewitz. All right, we have one more of Tristan Snell. Tristan Snell. Sniveling Snell. His fraternity name was Sniveling. Might have been in a sorority, though. Pretty amazing stuff. And he's just listened to the contempt and the envy that drips from his every word.
This is an absolute travesty. It would not happen for anybody else.
You're right.
Anybody else, it would be like, sorry, buddy, you lost, pay up.
Nope.
For him, he gets his own set of rules.
That is, he gets it. I mean, that just the lies. Make the lies so big, Tristan Snell, that no one would dare not believe it. Sieg Heil. You guys, that's our media. That's the most corrupt institution in America, the American news media. Tragic. A free and fair press. But that is sadly not what we have. And let's go to President Trump's attorney, Alina Habba. You know Alina Habba? Lovely woman, talented lawyer. And she was on this morning on the Fox News. Oh, no, she was on last night. I apologize. She was on last night on the Fox News channel. And she is, hey, yesterday, last night, it was still today. Big win for President Trump. Slashed that ridiculous dollar figure to a mere $175 million and get an extra 10 days to rustle up the $175 million. It might actually be working to some degree or another to the advantage of the Democrats because their effort was so completely ridiculous that it might be better that they were saved from themselves a little bit by the court. But here is Alina Habba, who as yesterday, hey, how did today go for you? Looked pretty good, right?
We won. No, we didn't win. You know when we'll win? When we get this all reversed, which is what's going to happen. So what happened today was that Letitia had to eat every single tweet she has posted since the day the twisted order from Judge Engoron came out, with the ridiculous number, with the disgusting injustice on the American people, not just Donald Trump.
Not just Donald Trump. And honestly, she was tweeting out every day about the interest that she's sticking President Trump with, because she is a purely, now this is supposed to be a nonpartisan office, the Attorney General of one of our 50 states, but she is a political fanatic, a political extremist. Letitia James live tweets $114,000 daily interest charges on Trump's $464 million fraud ruling. And, she's a political activist. She should, honestly, Alina Habba, I think the goal should not just be reversal, but the disbarment of the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, because of the abuses of power that we're all witnessing in real time. Alina Habba, again, pointing to the fact that Letitia James is tweeting out the daily interest that she is sticking her political enemy with, because she's a radical, a political activist abusing the power that she has as supposed to be nonpartisan Attorney General of New York, Alina Habba.
And I would love to see what she tweeted today, because she was having fun posting the interest on a man who has done nothing wrong and a family who's done nothing wrong every single day. And then the appellate division came in and said, sorry, due process still exists in America. You still get a right to keep your assets until we get to review what all these lawyers are saying was wrong.
Yeah, that's what the lawyers were saying was wrong, and they lie, and they go on television and they lie, and the news networks lie, and they, well, that's not true. There were not a series of meetings at the White House with the prosecutors in different cases in different parts of the country. Oh, but there were. And if our journalistic community, they love that word, community, they should all live in a gated community, and then we should blow the bridges in and out. The news media, they are not truth seekers. It is your vitally important mission to be truth seekers and not political hacks. The proper function of our republic actually depends on you being truth seekers. Alina Habba talking about the long, hard slog.
11 weeks, I have never seen something, Jesse, like I saw in that courtroom. It was a travesty on the justice system. And I am so proud of the appellate division for giving us the opportunity. They didn't reverse the case, but they will when they see what we saw. It was a disgrace. And today, there was a little bit of faith in the American system that I've lost over the past few years, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, it's easy to lose faith when the left takes over the judicial system and abuses it on behalf of one political party, the Democrat Party. The left, never been more left. They are red. And never use that red-blue stuff. The left is red. We're the only country in the world that refers to the left as blue and conservatives, true blue Americans, as red. Don't fall into that trap. Amazing stuff. Now, there is a real estate investor by the name of Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone, Cardone Capital. And he throws around hundreds of millions of dollars in investments. And watching what has been happening to Trump, he's pulled all of his investments out of New York. Not just New York City, but New York State. And he's moved to places with a friendlier environment like Florida and Texas. Real estate tycoon, investor, and big time investor. Grant Cardone on what he's witnessed and in New York, the abuses of power and how he's responded.
I hope she took a look.
That is the incorrect soundbite, but Grant Cardone over here sounds much more like a man.
We blew out of New York City 5 weeks ago after the injunction because I didn't feel like I could invest there on behalf of our investors, not knowing what kind of overreach people could do to me. If they can do that to Trump, they could do it to me, certainly.
Again, that's right. So it's a warning. It's a shot across the bow to every capitalist, to every normal American, that the commies are here and they're coming for you. And if they'll come for him and if they get him, then the precedent will be set that they can do it and get away with it with anyone. If they can nail him, they can nail anyone. And that's the goal. Grant Cardone, big-time investor.
We had $500 million to place there this year and placed it last week in Miami and Texas instead. Most of it in Miami.
Most of it in Miami because, good weather and all kinds of good stuff and beaches and nice, fun stuff going on there. And he's also predicting that it's not just New York that people like himself with $500 million to invest this year in New York in real estate, no longer investing. He says, if it's happening in New York, if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere.
There's people that won't underwrite deals in New York. And by the way, it's going to be a contagion spread to Illinois, Chicago, big cities, blue cities, San Francisco, L.A. People are worried about putting their money into these markets and not be able to control the laws. Property taxes are out of control. To be able to sanction a man for appraisals that we all do exactly the way Trump did his, by the way.
All right, that's big stuff. Such goings on. Let us take another phone call. I have too much stuff. I have the James Carville. They give me too much every day. Let's go to Danny calling from Northwest Washington, D.C., where we are as we speak. Daniel, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, Chris, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I was watching I call them the political pundit shows on Sunday, and I swear to God, Kristen Welker and Chuck Todd, Chuck Todd was bad, but Chuck Todd makes Kristen makes Chuck Todd look perfect. And their level of whining. I had kids that I went to grade school with, private school, that were spoiled, rotten little jerks that, if you told them no, they'd pout and whine and hiss and so on and so forth. And it's like, really, people, are you all that bitter? Are you that miserable? And whatever happened to fair and balanced and truthful journalism in this country? And as far as Tristan Snell is concerned, my God, if I had his name, I would summon up enough pride to take what was left of my contemptible, miserable life and throw a strap over the shower rod. Unbelievable.
Tristan Snell.
Crybaby.
It might be a good opportunity to go, what if his middle name is, Daniel, then he could be TD. He could go by initials. Tristan Snell. Yeah, but throw a strap over the shower rod. I like it. He could go down to the Israeli embassy and self-immolate, which is a new standard, I think, for the Democrats.
Had that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it has been a couple of weeks. It's time to, the Israeli embassy is surrounded by big Palestinian flags on flagpoles that the Democrats have stuck in the dirt around the embassy. And there are a few lunatics outside the embassy's front entrance every day, being threatening and mentally ill. But I think maybe on the way home, it's not far from here. I might drive by and, maybe leave a gallon of gasoline and a Zippo lighter. Just to be helpful.
Chris, have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Danny. That's, honestly, the news media. They are the auto-corrupt button in the United States of America. Not just in politics, but culturally as well. Gender dysphoria, gender confusion, violent crime, illegal aliens. Joe Biden's a great president, and Donald Trump's presidency was terrible because of mean tweets. $2.11 gasoline, a secure border, full grocery store shelves, no war in Europe, no war in the Middle East, peace agreements around the Middle East. Yeah, it was terrible. I remember it.
When NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News?
Now, out of Baltimore, there are reports that the ship was able to radio ahead, and at least some of the traffic going on to the Francis Scott Key Bridge was prevented from going onto the bridge, and that is good. According to reports, the ship's captain also dropped anchor before they collided with the bridge. These are strange details in some ways. A Danish shipping company among the first to announce they're no longer going in or out of Baltimore Harbor. And so that's an early indicator of what is going to happen a lot in the coming days. Also, Republican Congressman from Wisconsin, Mike Gallagher, announced that he's resigning from Congress. But he announced that he's not going to leave Congress until it's too late to hold a special election. He said he's going to leave April 19th. But if he leaves by April 9th, then Wisconsin can have a special election and replace him with a 1-vote, 2-vote margin in the House. But he says he's going to leave so late that they won't be able to have a special election to replace him. He should be kicked out now by the Speaker.